Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be spotlighting a classic horror movie that I think a lot of people who are into horror know this movie, but it's one that kind of gets left by the wayside because it usually gets upstaged by Robert Wise's The Haunting, which came out I think 3 or 4 years after this film, and this is Vincent Price's The House on Haunted Hill. And this movie was directed by William Castle, and William Castle was kind of a guy in the mid to late 50s where a lot of Hollywood studios were kind of afraid that major motion pictures would get replaced by television, which ironically, that's kind of shifted over to streaming these days. But at the time, they were legitimately concerned about this. So William Castle, he was known as kind of a gimmick director. And when I say that, I don't mean like a gimmick movie, but like there were ways that they advertised these films that were very gimmicky. Like he did another film called The Tingler, where they actually installed these little vibration devices in people's seats that actually played into the movie, and there were these little interludes that were actually cut into the film. Where Vincent Price would talk to the audience and tell people, stay calm or to scream or something like that. And when Vincent Price does voice work, it's usually always amazing whenever he has to do a voiceover for something. Just the way that he speaks it can be terrifying. Um, but this is a classic of the old haunted house genre, which I think is kind of a genre that's come back a little bit in recent days. I know they actually did a recent I think they did a recent version of this on Netflix, which I haven't seen. And the '99 one is just god fucking awful. But this is basically, Vincent Price plays this kind of very rich, kind of middle-aged man who basically, maybe it's because Vincent Price always kind of looked middle-aged when he was in a lot of his bigger roles. But he's basically supposed to be this very rich man who has this very pampered wife who kind of they're in a loveless marriage, and he hosts this weird party at this haunted house that he's rented that basically has had all these murders take place in it, and the movie is just about this cast of characters that are invited to this place for basically they have to spend the night there for $10,000. That's the MacGuffin to keep them in the house. Um, but they do that a lot with these type of movies. That's the only problem with the haunted house movie is the idea of how do you keep them in the house. In this movie, it's straight money for the most part, other than the fact that the house is actually constructed so there's only one actual door to the outside and all the windows have bars. So they basically kind of made this thing into kind of like a prison where these people all kind of get locked in. So it's a little bit of an ingenious way at the time to kind of give it a bit of an interesting premise on why these people are kept in the house other than, some kind of ghostly force holding them there. But Vincent Price does a great job. He leads the show for the most part. It has a lot of good twists and turns in it. There's a lot of very kind of I think a lot of people would call it hokey sort of effects. There's a specific shot that I remember actually where it's this shot where there's this one of the main characters outside of Vincent Price. She's looking around in the basement. She's looking around in this kind of dimly lit room, and we basically can just see her and kind of the wall behind her, and she's leaning down to try and tap on the wall because they're trying to find like a secret door basically in that room or if there's anything behind that wall. And as she's doing that, she brings her head up, and you see this like disturbing looking old lady. But the way that they actually film that shot is very interesting. It's a good jump scare, and that was back in the day when jump scares were actually there was a lead up to them. There was setup instead of just a cat jumps out of a cupboard and scares the shit out of somebody. It's not one of those jump scare a minute type of movies that they do nowadays. That was a relatively well earned jump scare because we actually do see that same old lady a little bit earlier in the film as well. But we see a close up of her there, and the close up is really really weird. And she almost looks like kind of a wax figure, but you can tell that she's posing or that she's moving. And then when she leaves the room, she leaves almost on like a it's almost like a skateboard or something. It's like a little dolly or something that they have her on that they pull her out of the room, so it looks like she's almost gliding out of the room. There's no motion from steps or anything like that, which makes that shot even weirder later on when you learn a couple of things. besides that, the way that it was filmed, the unbelievability of some of the things that are in the house. There's just a pool of acid in the house. But there are some things that you do have to just accept are there in terms of a realism factor. Most houses would not have a massive vat of acid that you could devour. You could dissolve a human being in, unless the person who owned that house was particularly sick in the head and could get their hands on that much acid. And a place to store it. Again, it asks a lot of questions of that. But that's the thing, is that these movies weren't necessarily designed to be any sort of logical. I mean, sometimes some of the stuff in it, like the story in it, is actually fairly good once you get to the end of the movie and you understand everything that's been going on. But as you're going through it, it actually has a pretty decent story that keeps you engaged in the film. That's the other thing, is this film has very good pacing. I like the way that the pacing goes in this film, because you really don't go too long in the movie, aside from like the first roughly 15 minutes. After that, you get stuff consistently happening in the house, and it's not. And this is why I like this movie more than The Haunting. And I know a lot of haunted house people, if you're watching this, you're probably going to say that's blasphemy, but I like it better because The Haunting is a very psychological film. It makes you. It makes you kind of connect the dots yourself, which is fine. I like that aspect of it, and a lot of it is kind of psychological and visceral and sound based. There's not like just an apparition that's sitting there in front of you the whole time. In this, there's a bunch of different effects and stuff like that, even if they are kind of corny sometimes. There's a bunch of different effects. You have these actual physical manifestations of these creepy things that they're talking about. The bodies, the murder, all of that shit is in this, and the way that they portray it is relatively graphic for 1959. We'd consider it extremely tame today compared to what we actually usually get in horror films nowadays. But I do like that about it, is that it shows more than it tells, which The Haunting does the opposite. Like I said, there are good moments in The Haunting as well. I do like that film as well. I might do a movie spotlight on that someday too, but um, it might be, maybe it's a little too well known. But House on Haunted Hill is my pick over that because of the way that William Castle knows how to entertain people. Um, not just entertaining people at his murder parties. He's also entertaining, the people in the audience. But that's the thing, is it shows is it's still a fun movie to watch for horror fans, because it's still got fun moments in it. It's got Vincent Price chewing up the scenery in this, being his most mysterious. That's the other thing too. Whenever you watch a Vincent Price movie, is that there's about 10 red herrings in the movie, so you don't know who's actually doing the murdering until the end of the film. And it's even funnier because half the time it usually isn't even Vincent Price who's killing people, other than a few of those roles. But like I said, I really enjoy this film. It's my favorite haunted house film. And I think it deserves a little bit more credit than it gets. Again, it always takes that back seat to movies like The Haunting. So that's just kind of my opinion, though. I want to know yours. Have you seen The House on Haunted Hill? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you a big Vincent Price fan? Or are you a big William Castle fan? Write down your favorite Vincent Price movie or William Castle movie in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?